Key concept 1.1 is basically early humans, which go well beyond where you need to know in this class, but all the way up until just before the development of agriculture. That will happen in key concept 1.2. So basically, the couple of bullet points of things to know here is the out of Africa theory. So early humans, migrated. They start in Africa. This is the map that you'll see oftentimes. This map sometimes it's a really good like multiple choice question or something to answer a short answer question off of, because this is showing you, you can see in the red here, humans begin in Africa hundreds of thousands of years ago and then migrate out because of climate, because of resources, because of all different factors of why people would move. And so as people are migrating, they're bringing with them everything, their culture, their ideas, everything. And so this is how humans populated the world. This image right here, this is something that could definitely be used in a multiple choice question. And so this is a good thing to be able to look at. And one of the things here that you'll see in multiple choice questions sometimes is it's not about necessarily, you don't have to memorize like the order of which humans migrated, but just paying attention to the map tells you that, right? Like you're seeing the years on there and you can get tripped up on a question because, for example, you can see Europe, those years are happening like at a different time than someplace else. And being able to know like where and when and in what order just by analyzing the map, that's super important. All right, so a word that you need to know here is about foraging. So foragers are your hunters and gatherers, right? So hunters and gatherers are people who are not using agriculture, right? They're hunting and they're gathering. So foragers tended to live in a society that were egalitarian, and egalitarian meant that they were equal. So that means that it's like, it's not like a power structure, like we have today. There are people that are wealthier than others, have more power than others. Instead, it's more everyone is equal, everyone shares everything. The goal in your society is to stay, right, to continue. And so everyone's working together to do that. And they're basically in these small kinship groups. So because you're, not able to harvest that much food, you can't really live in a huge city. You can't sustain that many people. So instead, these kinship groups were like family groups or extended families, and they didn't really grow beyond that. Also, there was no real private wealth. So, like your phone is yours, right? Like you or your parents own it. They don't have the sense of private wealth. Things are not yours. Everything is ours. That's an important point there because it just makes it different. It's a totally different way of life. We can't even really understand that because we very much live in a world where things are privately owned. And so it kind of just changes that. Were they essentially communist? No, they're not communist because communism also implies that somebody owns it. The government is going to own stuff, right? And the government is going to distribute things. Whereas foragers it's more about just like, we are using this stuff together, right? It's not, nobody owns it. There is no government in a foraging society. It's a little bit more basic than that. So here you can see like what, you've got just to show you like a small group of people working together that are each in charge of something different. They're not necessarily like in any type of hierarchy. It wasn't better to hunt. It wasn't better to gather. It wasn't better to do anything else. Everything was important, right? You were doing something that was keeping us warm or keeping us fed or keeping us safe. Like any one of those things is really important. And so there was no hierarchy. A cool documentary that you can watch, I should have pulled the link for you, but it's actually on YouTube if you just search it. I used to show this in class all the time. If you're just looking for like, I just need to understand what's going on in this time period, this documentary is kind of silly, but it tells you everything you have to know. They're kind of acting as if they were alive then. And so it's kind of silly, but I think it's like perfect for this time period. All right, hopping forward. So one of the things that I want to take a minute to talk about is human use of fire. This, I think, is a really important point because it gets at a larger aspect in our human history, right? It's not about being in this time period. It's about the fact that humans have always used resources and built on those resources to survive, right? They're making things better by using tools, right? And I think using fire as an example of technology getting better is excellent. Like this is a good example of how you can see that is changing over time. It's just really important, right? Like this specifically is a time when a lot changed because of fire. So to like cut through this. So because of fire, brain size is going to increase. Not automatically, right? It's not like there's fire and then there's bigger brains, but over time, because food is more nutritious. When you cook meat, it will be more nutritious. Over time, our brain sizes have grown relatively big compared to our body sizes. And so bigger brain sizes leads to more complex language. Our ability to put different ideas together, different sentences, different meanings out of words is unlike any other species, and how much we can say with it. And so that is what is leading to human society essentially taking over the world, right? Why do we have humans everywhere and not, I don't know, dogs? I mean, there's dogs everywhere, but I don't think they're in charge. I don't know. What do you think? You think the world would be a better place if dogs were in charge? All right. So one of the other things too that fire gave humans is socialization. So socialization, like when you think about people sitting around a fire telling stories, this is not something that is only true today, right? This is something that is always true. Like fire brought people around together, and so they talk to each other. This helped to really develop history as we know it, right? They are going to tell each other stories, and those stories will get passed down. That's oral history. So because of fire, that's possible. And so what you're building because of that is not only a history that you can actually save and preserve, you're also building on each other's knowledge, right? Like someone comes home and says, "Hey, I figured out how to do X," then the next person doesn't have to figure that out. They can learn more than what they did. And that is another reason why you have humans taking over the world, right? All right, so moving forward, one quick exam tip here is that there might be a question about early human migrations, and you might see it in a multiple choice. A lot of times, like the very first question on the actual exam in May would be about time period 1. And so when you take your period 1 test in this week or next week or whenever, you're going to have some multiple choice questions for sure. And you could definitely see one on early human migrations. You could see one on, the use of fire even could potentially be like that. And then you also could have a short answer question or an LEQ that kind of extend this far back, but you won't actually have an entire essay to write about this topic. Most of period 1 won't appear in the essays at all unless it kind of extends back that far.